So there's actually a scene in this movie where the main character is actually getting up to use the restroom in the airplane, and he just like ignores everybody and gets straight into the restroom. I mean, obviously we know what's happening in the trailer, but if I were one of those flight attendants, I would definitely be tackling that dude. I'm not sure exactly how toilets operate on airplanes. I'm not a scientist. I'm sure that there's some formula out there that they figured out where, like, poop isn't just floating when the airplane is ascending, or when it's actually landing. So I can't really speak to that, but if I'm the flight attendant, I'm not taking any chances, because there's definitely a chance that I'm gonna have to clean up poop off of like the walls. And I don't know, I just don't want to think about that. I would definitely be tackling this dude. But anyways, all jokes aside, let's get straight into today's video, because we are talking about Clayface. This is actually a movie that I've genuinely been excited to talk about on this on my channel, and I kind of always push it to the back burner. I didn't cover the first trailer, but we've now gotten a second trailer right before SDCC, and I kind of wanted to sit there, marinate, let the juices flow, think about what I'm gonna say, and here we go. Let's get straight into it. So, in this particular trailer, it's not really anything groundbreaking in terms of like in comparison to the original trailer. I think they just kind of flesh out a few sequences. And, if you've read comic books, you're kind of familiar with the origin story. I think they might have swapped out some things here and there, because it depends on the storyline or the story arc. Sometimes Matt Hagen is attacked by like a gangster or something along those lines. So I'm not sure exactly what the origin story is going to be in this particular film, but it does appear that he's either a star or some sort of rising star, maybe like an actor or something along those lines. And then he runs into the wrong crowd, maybe owes somebody some money, and then they essentially carve his face. And there are some sequences in this film that really push it forward. There's obviously the scene where they essentially slice his face open, which is incredibly graphic. There are some other sequences where, he's like rubbing his hands across his face, and his face is getting completely deformed. We actually do get to see what his face looks like after the attack. And then there's obviously the viral clip now where he's going into the restroom at or in the air, and he's actually looking to slice off pieces of his eyelid, because they've essentially fused together, and he's trying to like expose his eye socket again, because I mean, Clayface, right? So they're definitely pushing the boundaries here. And on the surface, I thoroughly enjoy it. This is exactly what we need in terms of, the DC cinematic universe. They definitely have to kind of, no pun intended, reshape the future and try to find these little tiny corners or pockets of the DC universe that have never been explored by any other creator. And I think James Gunn is definitely the guy to do it. You definitely need to put him at the forefront and just allow him to cook, and that's exactly what's happening. Not everything has been hits. I mean, Supergirl, well, honestly, Supergirl's been the only real downfall. Like, Peacemaker was phenomenal, Creature Commandos, Superman. And I think this, in terms of creativity and how it's going to land with the audience, I think it'll be on par with those projects. It's just something creative. It's something fresh. It's a brand new take on the DC universe, and I'm just very much for it. Now, I'm worried, and the main purpose or the main reason for that is, simply put, this may be pushing it a little bit too much. Now, according to multiple different sources, this is going to be a movie that is rated R. Now, we don't have official confirmation on the budget either, but my assumption is, with marketing and everything, the total budget has to be well over 200 million. Like, you don't really make DC comic book movies, or just comic book based movies in general, for under 100 million, and that's before marketing. Most of these movies, even like the lower end MCU movies, are being made for about like a $200-300 million. So I'm going to assume that it's at least over $200 million with a rated R classification. And on top of that, you also have to account for what is being showcased in this trailer. I feel like, there will be a lot of people that will second guess some of these choices, and in the long run, this definitely could be like the last nail in the coffin for James Gunn at the head of the DC cinematic universe. Just because, look, Superman was pretty successful. It wasn't like a massive success, right? Like there were some projections out there that this movie, could have potentially made over $1 billion. Unfortunately, the profits were not insane. I think the movie might have made a little bit over, like, or close to about 200 million. But then right after that, you basically fail with Supergirl, and all of the goodwill, all of the profits that you might have made from Superman have gone out the door with Supergirl. So you're basically back to square one, and your next project is a rated R body horror film that basically follows a kind of like C-list Batman villain. I don't really understand that choice, and I can only assume that the ending of this film is going to be incredibly frustrating as well. It does feel like it's just going to be an origin story. It's going to be about Matt going through all of these, difficult situations. Obviously, there are some there's some great parallels to some of the greatest horror movies out there. Some of the most cliche ones are like, for example, The Fly. A lot of people are going to compare it to The Thing. You have Werewolf in London. So many of these other great like transformation films are going to be talked about. You have the latest Wolfman, which was absolutely amazing in terms of that. So there's going to be like a decent fan base that really wants to see that. But the real problem is how many people are going to show up for this film. The last time that you tried something that was kind of intriguing and completely outlandish, or at least somewhat outlandish, was Supergirl, and that project completely bombed. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. Now, some of the people attached to this particular film are creators that I either have absolutely very little knowledge about, or I don't trust them, aside from Mike Flanagan, who was a writer on The Haunting of Hill House, as well as Midnight Mass, which is probably one of my favorite horror series of all time. If you guys haven't watched Midnight Mass, there is a little bit of fluff during that show where, they could have shortened up some of these episodes by like 10 to 15 minutes. But the core of the film is basically like presenting vampires in a very realistic and grounded manner. So that kind of gets me a little bit excited if he's able to kind of apply all of the things that he did really well for Midnight Mass and apply them to Clayface. I do feel like there's something there. Not to mention, he also did work on Doctor Sleep. I personally have not watched that film, but I've heard great things about it. And so he's definitely a writer that can create really good storylines, grounded storylines that can be a little bit realistic and I think can hit a little bit harder. So the fact that he's attached to this project kind of gives me a little bit of hope that in the long run, this could be something that, genuinely feels like a real DC project. Now, look, my personal take on this is pretty simple. I'm excited. I love the direction of this. I love the scenery. I love the body horror. I love the fact that this is an origin story for a villain that we've never seen before. Like if they had gone with like Joker, or if they had gone with one of the characters that we consistently see on screen, the Riddler, Two-Face, it would have been really frustrating, right? Like we consistently see them, but the fact that they actually went out of their way to give us a villain that, we really even see in the animated shows either. Like it's just one of those characters that kind of comes and goes and never really gets an opportunity to shine. And the fact that they were willing to make a film based on Clayface is just absolutely amazing. But in the long run, I don't think this movie's going to make a ton of money, and I feel like James Gunn universe needs to start making money like yesterday. There is no way this dude is going to hold on to his job if the next movie is like, let's just hypothetically say that Clayface is able to make its money back. Like, how can you really, in theory, as James Gunn, show your face after that? Like every single, your 3 live action projects or 3 live action films into you having all of the power in the DC cinematic universe, and all you have to show for it is we're at square one, right? Like Superman made a few $100 million. We lost all of it with Supergirl, and then Clayface comes in and just breaks even. There's absolutely no way this dude is going to hold on to his job moving forward. If that's the case, this movie has to be, or had to be, an absolute home run. The fact that they pushed it to be a horror film, a rated R film, it just doesn't project very well financially. Not to say that I don't love the movie, I don't love the concept. I just don't know if this is good for James Gunn. But again, this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. I'm very curious to see what all of you guys have to say. Stay safe out there, enjoy the hobby, read some comic books, watch movies, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.